Okay.
Okay.
Hello,
Hello.
Michelle Knudsen.
Yes.
I think I'm going to just mention your last name maybe once or twice during the show.
Okay.
So that I got it right the first time.
Yes.
Okay. It's an incredible honor to have you on our interview today. So before we start, I should mention that my name is Mel Rosenberg, and I am the host of the Children's Literature Channel of the New Books Network. And you are our incredible highly prized
I'll take it.
author of about 50 children's books,
Mm-hmm.
with more honors citations than you could line a room with. And you are one of my favorite children's authors in the world.
Thank you.
So I'm like incredibly honored. And even though I brought you here ostensibly to talk about your new book on Nellie Bly, we will be talking about your wonderful picture books, because I can't help it. and
Totally.
and about you're just gonna have to live with that today. That's
Okay.
So tell us about Nellie Bly. It's an incredible story. I mean, the story behind the story of Chelsea and the whole. Tell us.
Okay. So yes. So my newest book is this one. She Persisted, Nellie Bly, and it's part of the She Persisted biography, chapter book biography series. And it started because Chelsea Clinton wrote this book, She Persisted, 13 American Women Who Changed the World. And it's a wonderful picture book about these 13 amazing American women. But in this book, it's a picture book, right? So each woman only got like a paragraph. And Chelsea Clinton and the publisher realized readers would probably like to know a lot more about these women, about their lives, about what they did. So they started this biography series, and they reached out to different authors that they thought would be the right match for each woman in the book. So I was so excited that they asked me to write about Nellie Bly, who I had known a little bit about, actually from a friend of mine. Matt Phelan wrote a graphic novel called Around the World, which talks about 3 famous around the world journeys, including Nellie Bly. So I knew that part of her life, but I didn't know anything about sort of the rest of her story.
One second. So you're sitting in your lounge, in your comfy chair,
yes,
watching the news, and hi, it's Chelsea on the line.
It wasn't Chelsea. It was my agent. Indirectly from Chelsea, but she had been part of that decision. And I got to meet her on Zoom, of course, because of COVID. We couldn't do any live events. We had all these live events planned. Everybody who wrote one of the books was going to get to meet her, and that didn't happen. But I did get to meet her virtually, and we did some wonderful panels with some of the other women. It was an amazing. I was so honored to be one of the lineup of authors just included these incredible women authors. And now
I think that they were lucky to have you.
Well, thank you. I was in very very good company, and it's a wonderful series. They're continuing it with more, because of course there's an infinite number of amazing American women they can write about. So yeah, so I'm really excited about it. And I've never written a biography before, so that was new.
It's such a, like, I'm thinking, Marilyn's Monster Library Lion and this.
Yeah, very different.
It's quite a departure. How was it for you? Like, did you really get into this, or did you say, "Oh, Chelsea Clinton, wow, I better do this," right?
It was kind of all of those things. Like it was an amazing opportunity, and it's always fun to have a new challenge, So I thought it would be fun to. I mean, chapter books are really short, right? It was also I've written a lot of different formats. I've written like board books and picture books and middle grade novels and young adult novels and early readers, but no early chapter books. So now I've filled in that hole. But they're pretty short. And so it was such a challenge to kind of learn all about this woman's incredible whole life and then it was hard. I mean, to choose what to include and then to write it in such a way that young readers would be able to follow it and understand it and enjoy it. I mean, that's one of the fun things about writing for children, is to sort of taking big ideas and making them accessible and fun.
But Michelle, here's the case. Sometimes we write about people and there's not much of a written record about what they wrote. But Nellie wrote a ton of newspaper articles, literally a ton, and they're accessible. So how many months did it take you to read her own writing? Not to mention other people's biographies.
I didn't have all that much time. It was a very short window. So I worked really hard and really long hours. I've read some really wonderful adult biographies about her. But the best part was reading her own writing, because that felt like, obviously I can't interview her. She died a long time ago, but hearing her voice in her newspaper writing and in the book she wrote was sort of the closest I could get to getting to know her. And it was just really wonderful to have that perspective.
She stopped at nothing to be a investigative journalist.
Yes, she was
traipsing around the world in 72 days, pretending to be a Michigan in an insane asylum.
Mm-hmm.
What did that tell you about her?
She was described in a newspaper article about her. She was described as audacious, which I think is the perfect word for her. From an early age, she really didn't like the word no. And if someone told her she couldn't do something, she was determined to prove them wrong over and over again. And she really, there's a famous quote by her about energy rightly applied and directed can accomplish anything. And that's really how she lived her life. Like if she thought she wanted to do something, nothing could stand in her way. And at the time, it was difficult for a woman to have a job at all. It was difficult for a woman to succeed as a newspaper reporter. And she just broke through all these barriers and really helped pave the way for women who came after her.
Absolutely. How much of Nellie Bly is there in you, Michelle? Oh,
I don't know. I mean, hopefully a little. Hopefully a little. I don't like the word no either. And I find her very inspiring. So I would like to believe there's a little Nellie Bly in me.
Mm-hmm. So your agent, who is?
Jody Reamer at Writer's House.
Ah, wonderful. She didn't just pick up the phone to you. She must have known that this was something that was, right up your alley.
Oh, well, they contacted, so Chelsea Clinton and the publisher, which is Philomel, contacted Jody to ask her if I would be interested. And then Jody called me. I was like, yes, and then I called her back in a panic and I was like, this is a big deal. I don't have a lot of time to do it. And she's like, it's okay, you can do it. And I was like, okay, I can do it. And then I did.
I need a monster. I need a monster. Where's my monster?
So yeah, it's very different. I couldn't insert any of the normal things I like to write about, fantasy and dragons and monsters and lions. Mm-hmm. None of those.
Okay, so let's go back now to Michelle, the person.
Okay.
And so we can segue into Michelle, the writer. What were you like as a 5-year-old?
Oh, gosh, that was a long time ago to try to remember. I like to climb trees a lot. There are terrifying photographs of me at the Grand Canyon with my parents, like climbing trees near the edge of the canyon. I didn't have a lot of fear as a child. I liked horseback riding. I liked climbing trees. I rode my bike everywhere. And I wasn't actually much of a reader yet. I mean, 5 is pretty young for reading, but I didn't really become like in love with books until I was a little bit older.
So where did you grow up, and what were your parents like? Like, did they have a life insurance policy on you or something?
Maybe. I should ask them.
Yeah. I will.
I grew up in Staten Island, which is a borough of New York City. And it was a great place to grow up. Some of my best friends are still my friends I had growing up. And my parents were big readers. my dad was a big science fiction reader, so he would have a lot of, he read science fiction magazines like Analog and Asimov's, and those would always be around the house. And I was fascinated because the covers would have like spaceships and like space stations, and it was very interesting to me. And then my mom read a lot of fantasy novels, so there would be like unicorns and centaurs on the cover. And before I was old enough to read those books, she would tell me about the plots, you know, because they were, I mean, giant books to me at the time. And so she would tell me the stories that she was reading, and I couldn't wait until I was, you know, big enough to read a book that was like, you know, 400 pages or whatever it was.
So hold on. They didn't read to you like when you were a 4-year-old?
Oh, they did. They didn't read those things to me. I mean, my dad used to read Alice in Wonderland to me a lot, which was one of my favorites. And I always got a book at bedtime. And but I think I kept asking for Alice in Wonderland. He did a really good rendition of the turtles. There's a beautiful soup passage in there.
The mock turtle soup.
Yeah. And I loved how he did that. So I would ask for that a lot. He probably got tired of it.
I'm crazy about Lewis Carroll. Well, we won't talk too much about Lewis Carroll. So other than, I have this vision that you liked Madeline.
I did like Madeline, although that book wasn't like a big book for me. My favorite picture book as a child was Mog the Forgetful Cat, which we had cats and I loved cats, and I would read that book over and over again. And also The Grouchy Ladybug by Eric Carle was one of those ones that I came back to again and again. I don't think I really appreciated Madeline until I was a little bit older. I don't know why.
That's okay. I can be wrong, you know.
On that one thing.
No, we just started and I'm wrong already. Okay, so when did you start? I know that you once in an interview stated that your first children's book that you wrote was about Mickey Mouse and a broken lamp.
Yes, that was actually around age 5. I like to tell stories from an early age, and yeah, big copyright infringement. I just wrote about Mickey Mouse without permission from Disney, and illustrated it myself, which I don't do now because for many reasons. And basically, it was Mickey Mouse, you know, broke his lamp, got it fixed. That was the end of the story. It needed some work. I can say now, looking back. It needed maybe more of an arc.
More of a story arc, right?
Yeah.
Okay, but for a 5-year-old. Okay. Yeah, and then don't be hard on yourself. And then what happened? So
then as I got older, I started writing poems. My family took a bunch of cross-country trips in the car. And there would be a lot of time in the back seat, you know, but I didn't have siblings, so it was just me in the back seat with the suitcases. And I had a notebook and I would write poems. And in elementary school, I used to write plays. So I would write plays and I would make my friends, I'm astounded that they did this, but I would make them perform with me in front of the class, the plays that I wrote, which were very silly, but a lot of fun. And then I guess over time, I started writing more stories. I transitioned sort of from poetry into stories, and thought I would write adult science fiction and fantasy novels, because that was when I really got hooked on books, and I thought, oh, that's what I want to do. You know, this is going to be my job. And then I kind of fell into children's books by accident. I graduated from college with an English degree and no job, of course, and applied to every job I could think of that had anything to do with writing, like marketing jobs and publishing jobs. And there was a job opening at Random House Children's Books for an editorial assistant. And I had taken one children's literature course in college. And I was like, look, I'm very interested in children's publishing, although I knew nothing about it. I don't know why they hired me. And I thought in my head, oh, I'll just get in the door, you know, in the publishing world, and then I'll move to like Del Rey or some other like science fiction fantasy imprint. And then I loved it. I loved it. I loved children's books so much. I had a wonderful boss who taught me so much about editing, and really everything I love about fantasy, I can do in children's books too, because anything you can think of is possible in a picture book, you know. I write fantasy for older kids, for middle grade and young adult. But I sort of never looked back. You know, I stumbled into this children's book world and it was such a good fit for me. So I've been
Fantastic.
there ever since.
Okay, so but you started out as an editor,
Yes.
fixing other people's stories, reading other people's stories.
Mhm. So
and then what happened?
And then I started writing. So I was in mass market children's books. And a lot of those books are very short. There's some novelty books. There are like concept books, like counting books and alphabet books. And sometimes the editors would write those books in-house rather than hiring a writer because the text was so simple. So I sort of got to practice on the job writing books for children. And of course, I was seeing so many books for children and editing books for children and sort of learning, you know, about, I mean, I had taken writing classes and I had written stories and stuff on my own, but really got this deep immersion into story structure and, you know, watching my boss and how she edited things and how she would decide sort of about like what to suggest to help with pacing or I don't know, all the things that are involved in fixing a story. So it was very educational.
Okay, and then what happened? This is great. You just talk, and then every 90 seconds I'll say, and then what happened?
And then I started to write more of my own. I still wanted to be a writer. I mean, that was still my goal, right? So I started to write more of my own stories, and not just ones sort of on the job, but I would send them out to other places. And the first books I wrote that way were probably board books and early readers, like these, I don't know if everybody knows, but like these 6x9, you know, for really little kids. This was one of the first ones that I sold, which was inspired by my cat. And
1 second. So advice for aspiring writers. Own a cat.
Own a cat, absolutely. I have two. You may see them in the background somewhere at some point. Cats are essential for a successful writing career. I think that's true. A dog is okay too, but ideally a cat.
Now you tell me.
Yeah, and so then I moved away from New York City. I moved up to Ithaca, New York, which is in central New York. So I left my full-time editing job and was going to focus more on writing my own things. And that's when I started working on my first novel.
You moved to Ithaca, where Cornell University is.
Yes, I had gone to Cornell as an undergrad.
And you went back to Ithaca because?
Because I wanted to get out of the city. I was engaged at the time, and my now ex-husband wanted to get out of the city too. And we kept thinking like, oh, we want to go somewhere like Ithaca, but not Ithaca, because he was from there. And we didn't want to go back. But there's no place like Ithaca. It's a really magical place. So we were like, all right, we'll go there and then we'll figure out where to go next. And then we stayed.
Do they still have that canyon?
They do. They have all the gorges and it's just
great.
Beautiful.
Yeah, beautiful.
So we were there for about 5 years. And because once you get there, it's really hard to leave because it's great. I mean, it's a double college town. There's so much culture and like there's
1 second, Michelle. I have to get a pun out of the way. I can't concentrate anymore.
Okay.
Ithaca is gorgeous.
Yes. One of my professors wrote that slogan for a marketing campaign.
What, did Ithaca is gorgeous?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
All right. Sorry.
Good one. Yeah, so I had worked at the library as an undergraduate, as like work study, and I've left that out. I worked in libraries a lot as a kid. Like I loved the library. I was a library monitor in school. You know, I worked as an undergrad, and then when we moved back there, I went back to the library and I was like, hey, I'm back, you know, can I get a job? And eventually I got a job as an evening and weekend supervisor, which was the perfect writing job because I could write during the day and then go in at night and be around people and books. And I got unlimited checkouts at the library. So, you know, people would return stuff and I'd be like, oh, this is good. And I'd check it out, take it home. There were stacks of books all around my house. And I was working there when I came up with the idea for Library Lion, which I think was largely inspired by just Cornell University Library is like just an incredible library system. Best library I ever worked in. No offense to the other libraries that I've worked in. Everybody there really cared about what they were doing. it was just a wonderful, welcoming place, which is the feeling that I tried to put into Library Lion. So I think a lot of it comes from that.
What's that? Does it have the lions in front?
It does not. It does not. But
So you had to import the lions from New York.
yes, I did.
So Michelle, one sec. So here's the question that I'm always going to ask you. You don't have to answer it, but you could.
Okay.
Do you remember a specific moment where you had this genius spark of invention of the lion just walking into the library?
I do, actually. I don't always for my books, but this one I remember. So sometimes I would work till 2 o'clock in the morning because the library was open very late because Cornell students study a lot. So the library would close at 2, and then we'd like close up the library, and I'd come home, and it was about 2:30 in the morning. And I had wanted to write a book about the library. I'd kind of been thinking about it. But I was actually thinking about a scary story because sometimes we'd walk around the library at night during closing, and it was creepy. There were like dark hallways, some of the building was very old. And I kept thinking about trying to write a scary story, but it didn't fit. Like, I loved the library so much. It wasn't a scary place to me. So that was sort of in the back of my head. And there was this night I got home, it was really late, but I was still awake from work. And I just sat down at my dining room table, and the first line of the story just popped into my head. One day, a lion came to the library, and I was like, oh, that's a good first line for a story. And I started just writing. I still have the first draft. It's on the back of an envelope and like some purple note paper that I just had nearby, like, because I was so afraid I would lose it. I just started writing it out. And I got like a very rough first draft that first night until I was too tired. And then the next day I worked on it some more and worked on it some more. And then finally sent it to, and I had been wanting to write like a nice, like a real picture book, like with a jacket and like, one of the beautiful books that I had so admired. And so I sent it to my agent, and I was like, I think this maybe could be a picture book. And it was so long. I didn't know what I was doing. It was way too long. It's still very, very long for a picture book, but it was even longer when I first wrote it. But then Jody really liked it, and she sold it to Sarah Ketchersid at Candlewick Press, who I had wanted. This is probably way too much information, but she had really wanted a goldfish story. And I had written some terrible, terrible goldfish stories that we never went to Sarah. They were terrible.
One day a goldfish walked into the library.
It doesn't work,
No.
It doesn't work. So Jody likes to joke that like, this was my goldfish story. She's like, Sarah, you wanted a goldfish story. What about a lion? I don't know.
But hold on, but like you were like really young.
I was. It was a long time ago.
So this is not your first book, but this is like your first, first humongous masterpiece, bestseller, translated into 500 languages book.
Yes. It was actually my 38th book, because I had done so many like board books and coloring books and early readers, which I'm also proud of. Yeah. But this was sort of this had always been a dream to write this kind of book. And then it helped that Kevin Hawkes was agreed to be the illustrator. So of course the illustrations were just amazing. And it's funny because they sent me some samples, and they were like, we're considering asking Kevin Hawkes if he wants to do this book. And all the samples they sent me were a very different style. It was like his Westlandia style. It was very kind of, I'm terrible at talking about art, but I think of it as very painty, very saturated, like deep colors. And I was like, oh, this is beautiful. That would be lovely. And so Kevin accepted, and he's like, but I'm going to use a completely new style. And we were like, okay. And we had no idea what the art was going to look like until he sent the sketches. And then of course we loved it. But there was like this waiting period of like, I don't know what it's going to look like. It's beautiful.
So one of the things, especially in America, here in Israel, they want us to be more in touch with the illustrator. But in America, you rarely see any of the illustrations until it's too late. Yeah. You spent your whole life trying to break in, and you do, and then you have no idea who your partner is.
Yeah, they keep us very separate. I teach writing for young people at Lesley University's MFA program, and this is like a thing my students have a lot of trouble with because they write lots of art notes in their manuscripts, and I'm like, no, you don't get to tell the illustrator what to do. Like it's not your job. You have to like write the story and just then hand it over and let it go. And it's really hard. It's gotten easier for me, but it's still, you have this idea in your head of what the pictures will look like. But what I've realized is that the illustrators they're so good at what they do. They come up with things I would never have thought of. If they actually drew what I wanted them to draw, it would be terrible. Like I need to move out of the way and let them do their work. But it is weird. Like Marilyn's monster was illustrated by my friend, Matt Phelan. And so he was the only illustrator that I knew ahead of time. And even then we were very careful not, like he would tease me. We were at a book festival and he's like, I've got sketches, you can't see them, because I didn't want to mess with his process. Like I loved his work. I didn't want to stick my nose in it, and mess it up. So it's a weird collaboration where we're operating so separately, but I do get to see the sketches at some point. Mm-hmm. But even then I don't talk to the illustrator directly.
Yeah, but that's because you are famous and so successful. But I think that most authors probably don't get to see much of the artwork.
I guess not early in your career, maybe not.
And I don't know because I have a book coming out next year, and I'm also trying to shy away from seeing what the illustrator is doing, even though I'm dying to see it.
Right.
So
yeah. You have to just let go. Just trust them to take care of the story. And then they I know.
Okay, so Library Lion, mm-hmm. You are a girl who doesn't necessarily do what you're told.
Yes.
We're told not to write picture books over 500 words, and like you buried that in Library Lion, and so what? And we're taught not to scare kids. And Library Lion is a potentially scary book. I'm not going to even talk about Marilyn monsters for the next 3 minutes. And I know you write scary books for older kids, but like you're a no-no lady.
I'm a what?
A no-no lady. I mean,
yes. Yes, that's accurate.
You just said yes. You just agreed with me. You're supposed to say, oh no.
No. Yeah, I can't explain it. It's not willful. I don't set out to like just defy all the picture book rules. My editor likes to describe picture books in 2 different categories. She talks about there's like traditional picture books, which are very short, and the art and the text are sort of equal, and you can't take one away and still have a complete thing. And then there's picture storybooks, which is more what I write, where the story, you could just read the story and know what's going on. You don't necessarily have to see the art, although the art brings so much to it. And that's sort of our excuse for why my picture books are so long. They're all long. They're all, I think maybe Argus is under 1,000 words, but I'm not even sure. The rest of them are all, I have a new one coming out. Actually, should I not talk about that yet?
No, you should, but I just want to divulge that this morning Israel time, I said, okay, I'm going to take Marilyn's monster and type it out and just see what the word count is. And I got halfway through, it was 500, so I'm guessing it's over 1,000, which is way beyond what we teach our writers.
Yes.
And if you want to divulge now your next book, that's fine. I love when authors spill the beans.
Well, it's just another really long one. I think it's 1,300 words. But it's also being illustrated by Kevin Hawke. So I'm very, very excited.
Wow.
Yes. And I've seen just like one little early sketch. That's all I've seen. So,
and do you want to tell my avid readers and the listeners and watchers what it's about?
Sure. So it's about a big furry spider who is mistaken for a kitten and gets adopted by this woman. And And then he's very confused. But then he starts to enjoy this life that he has as a kitten being taken care of, and forms this bond with her. And then he's terrified that she's going to find out. She's like, it starts, she just feels him under the couch. She's like, oh, what's this? It feels like a kitten. And she pulls him out, and it's this giant, enormous spider. And then she just adopts him. And then her friends are coming over, and he's terrified that they're going to be like, that's not a kitten, that's a giant spider. And then she's going to make him leave. So, I'm really excited about this story, because it's gone through so many transformations. And it was originally just kind of a silly story about a woman who lost her glasses and finds this spider, and all the neighborhood kids are like, that's not a kitten, and now it's from the spider's point of view, and it's much more emotional.
The stories we write are like startups. They keep pivoting.
Yes.
They start out one thing and it's a spider, and then it turns into a giraffe. What is the average number of revisions that you do on the short ones?
Oh,
short ones, relatively speaking. Your short ones.
My short ones. Oh gosh, I don't know. I mean, Library Lion didn't have that many, because that book was just sort of like this gift that came. It was mostly there from the beginning, and then it was just sort of little tweaks. Big Mean Mike went through a lot. I mean, at least 10, probably more. Argus went through a lot. I rewrote the second half of that book at least 20 times. I have some picture books I'm still working on that have had more than 20 revisions. I still haven't figured it out. Some of them take a long time to come together. But they just, you have to wait until all the pieces are in place. Sometimes it's just not the right time for that story. I don't know. That's what I tell myself anyway.
No, I think you shouldn't be hard on yourself, because sometimes you need 50 revisions, 70.
Yeah.
What, as long as you're working on it, right?
Yes.
I think that sometimes when you sell the manuscript is the time when you have a bit of a difficulty. That's it? I'm not going to revise it anymore?
Oh, they have to take them away from me eventually. Like
Exactly.
I'm like, wait, I want to fix this part. And they're like, no, you're done. You're done.
Exactly. I rest my case.
Yeah.
So let's talk now, while I have you on the air, let's talk about Marilyn's Monster, which is another one of my favorites.
Thank you.
It's also a no-no book.
Yes. No.
Yeah. So tell us about Marilyn's Monster and how it came to life.
So Marilyn's Monster was another one where the idea just sort of surprised me. I was actually at a writing retreat, listening to an illustrator give a talk about something completely unrelated. And this idea, so in the story, all the kids start getting monsters. They start appearing, and your monster has to choose you. You can't just like go and get a monster, right? Your monster just shows up and it's like, you're my kid. And Marilyn's monster doesn't show up. And eventually she's the only one. And everyone's like, well, you just have to wait, until your monster finds you. And finally she's like, no, I'm going to go out and look for him.
I'm going to climb that tree.
Yeah. Tree climbing. I didn't even think about that, but maybe that's from my childhood. And so this idea just sort of came to me, and I felt so bad. I'm like listening to this lecture, but I'm like scribbling in my notebook, trying to get the story down before it vanishes. And that one, with most of the story was there in that first draft, which doesn't always happen. And that was the one so that Matt illustrated, and normally, at least here we don't get to choose our illustrators. I can make a suggestion, but the publisher doesn't have to listen to me. So I wrote to Matt, and I was like, I think, because we had wanted to do a book together, and I was like, I think this might be the book. And he read it and he liked it. And so, and then I sent it in to my editor, and I was like, who might be a good choice for this book? Matt Phelan. And we thought we were being all sneaky, and it turned out later they knew all along what we were up to, but they love him there, and it was such a perfect fit that it made sense. So
okay, but I must say that given your spectacular success on Library Lion, I think that you're allowed to venture opinions. And here's another thing, okay? Library Lion has a little bit of scariness. It still was a huge international bestseller award winner and so on. So it kind of goes against the grain. And Marilyn's Monster is a kind of a scary book with the illustrations.
I mean, they are monsters.
Yeah.
They're nice monsters for the most part, but yeah, some of them are very big and weird.
No, the illustrations are monstrous. I mean, in a good way, right?
Yeah. Well, I guess I like the idea that something that might, I mean, I guess my new book too, it's something that could be very scary. I'm terrified of spiders. It's very weird that I wrote this book, but I like that idea that something that's scary could also be lovable or comforting. I mean, I like that something can be many things.
But Michelle, I try and bring authors to admit this. And you just admitted it, you see, and I didn't even ask you. We write to our fears, to our phobias, to our insecurities.
Yeah, no, that's true. I think we write, we think we're writing about what we love and what we think is wonderful, and then underneath are all the things we're scared of, all our deepest fears and disappointments, and that's what that's what makes the book substantial, right? Like
for sure.
Underneath.
And Marilyn's Monster, it works because, well, it reminds me of things. Oy vey, I'm going to tell you my opinion, and you're famous and I'm a nobody, but it's like things like puberty, isn't it?
I mean, it's not about that, but I have heard that interpretation before. I've heard a lot of interpretations. One of my friends, I was single at the time that I wrote it, and one of my friends thought it was about looking for a partner, where you can't, eventually you don't want to just wait, you have to go out and find what you want. I mean, I love that people have different interpretations of it.
My mentor, Harold Underdown, is going to say that that's a perfect book that has reader response, and where people can read in their own monsters.
Yeah.
My voice changed when I was like all the kids in class, their voices had changed and they had whiskers, and poor little Melvin still talked like this. He was about 16. When is my voice going to change? And so I think that's one of the wonderful things about your writing and about Marilyn's Monster, is that we can all bring our puberties and our ghosts and our monsters into your story.
Oh, thank you. I mean, I love that idea. I mean, that I think that is like ideally what a book should achieve, like the writer does what they're going to do, and then the reader completes the picture and makes it their own in whatever way is meaningful to them.
Yeah. And the other thing I teach my university students, that you have to not only identify your monsters, but you have to recruit them. And your book is about recruitment.
Yes.
And it's wonderful. I mean, like, I'm tickled pink to be interviewing you. I know that you can't see my pinkness, but
I believe you.
But trust me, it's there. Is there anything that I haven't asked you that I should?
Oh, I don't know.
No, I know.
Okay.
Do you know?
No.
Okay. So what you've had this stellar success. To what do you attribute it to? And what is your advice for the young and old people trying to break in such a very difficult business as picture book writing?
Well, I think a lot of my success is about luck, which I don't say to be self-deprecating. I feel like that's a big part of this business is you can write a wonderful story, but if you don't get it to the right person at the right time, things don't, like, I'm very proud of Library Lion. It's a story that means a lot to me, and it means a lot to a lot of people, which makes me so happy. But I was also very lucky that it got this wonderful illustrator that it got this wonderful editor, that Candlewick made it their lead book of the season. So it got a lot of attention that maybe it wouldn't have gotten if I had written it a year earlier or a year later. Like sometimes there's things we can't control. And so sometimes the timing has a lot to do with that. So
let's say that that's a given. Library Lion, with all of the luck and the chance and whatever, but still, it came out. It was a smash hit. It's been translated into a zillion languages. You won an incredible amount of awards for it. It's a terrific book.
It's a musical in Israel.
Yeah, and it is. And so, yeah, you need luck, but luck is of course a given. Beyond the luck, what do you need?
Perseverance, like Nellie Bly. This is definitely a business where you can't give up and you can't take the word no. You know, I mean, you have to listen to other people, right? If people aren't enjoying your stories, you want to look at them and be like, okay, why aren't people enjoying my stories? But you don't give up. You don't decide, I'm not a writer. You think, all right, how can I make this better? I think you always have to be sort of feeding your creativity, filling your well, reading all different kinds of things. That's the advice I give to young writers, especially. Like, read everything. Read things that are not at all your kind of book that you think you like. Read nonfiction, read poems, read articles, you know, because you never know where you'll get an idea. And also just all these different types of writing, different vocabulary, you know, all of that goes in there, right? And it enters your toolbox. It's in your subconscious. It's stuff you can then pull on later for your stories. And just keep writing. And if you write something and if you don't like it, write it again, you know, don't give up. Those are the basics, I think. Persistence and being just open to other forms of art and other forms of writing to kind of feed your soul.
Okay, that's great advice. Do you ever get rejected these days?
Oh yeah, all the time. I got rejected this morning, in fact. And
I'm sorry to hear that.
No, it's okay. I started writing some adult short stories, which was one of my early loves. And so I'm just sort of feeling out that area again. So it's totally fine. But my picture books still get rejected. You know, again, because it has to be the right book for the right editor at the right moment. And you know, I just keep working on them. I always have lots of projects in different stages. So that so I've always got something to work on, and it helps me feel better when somebody doesn't want this book. I'm like, that's all right. I'm working on this book now, and I'll come back to that book and send it back out. So I think everybody gets rejected. Oh, like this career, that's a part of it always.
Okay, in the area of picture books, okay, you've had 2 wonderful successes.
Thank you.
And it's possible that after Library Lion and Marilyn's Monster, that these may be your legacy in picture books. Oh. It's a possibility.
I'm sure. I guess so. I mean,
how are you with that possibility?
I mean,
these are books that are like 1 in a million books.
Thank you. These are, I mean, that's lovely to say. And I mean, of course, I love the idea. That those books, I'm pointing them, they're like on my shelf. That's why I keep doing this. That those books will have a resonance and go on. Although I also want to, you know, I've got hopefully still many years of writing ahead of me. Like, I don't want to believe that I won't write.
But yeah, but would that be, okay, but I my job is to be a little difficult. Okay. You know, I'm nice, and then I'm difficult.
Okay.
What if, you know, I was a scientist for many years. I wrote over 100 articles, but my first article is the most cited. It's the most well-known. It's the most important of my whole career. I mean, had I known, I might have, you know, just bolted and gone straight to writing, which is what I wanted to do. But this happens sometimes, you know, you have such a huge stellar success, and you've had it twice. And I know that we all aspire. I mean, what is your best book, Michelle?
I mean, if I had to be remembered for one book, I would pick Library Lion, definitely.
Okay. Okay. And what is the best book? What is Michelle's best book?
That's an impossible question to answer. I don't know.
Okay, but like many authors will say, it's the book that they're working on now.
Oh,
You
not
don't,
yet.
you don't have to say that. You don't have to say that.
No, the book I'm working on now is I'm just starting a second draft, so it's too early. I would love to believe that, but it's too early to say. No, I think Library Lion might be my best book.
Okay, so starting to close now. It's been already 45 minutes. So much
that
fun.
went very fast.
Yeah, for me too. Well, so I wish you that you will have even greater successes than Library Lion.
Thank you.
And to be frank, I wouldn't be surprised.
Thank you. You're back to being nice now.
It's the end of the conversation, Michelle. And now I have to pronounce your name again. So
You can do it.
No, for some reason, your parents took a perfectly good Danish name of Knudsen, and they chopped off the Knud.
I assume it was my grandfather. I don't know that you can blame my parents. I don't know. It's
Okay.
unknown who made that decision.
Okay, so Michelle Knudsen, it's been wonderful interviewing you. And I think that I've learned a little bit about your magic, and I hope that my viewers and listeners have. So for the Children's Literature Channel of the New Books Network, I just want to say a giant thank you. It was wonderful to have you. Thank you for your candor and your genuine and generous spirit. And please continue to light up our lives.
Oh, thank you so much. This has been lovely. This really flew by. It's been great talking to you.
It was marvelous talking to you. Let's not get into an argument. It was nice. No, it was wonderful. Oh no, it was marvelous. I'm going to sell my house. It was so good. It was okay. This is sounding like the end of the Muppet Show, right? It was great. It wasn't so good. Thanks so much, Michelle. It's been wonderful.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye.